Rachel Shatto, staff writer with MovieJawn, and I am so excited today to present my interview with Rob Cousineau and Chris Rosik, directors of So Fades the Light. This haunting and lyrical film follows the literal and metaphorical journey of Sun, a young woman who was once the child figurehead of a deadly cult. Now an adult and adrift, both she and the cult's recently released leader are unknowingly on a collision course with one another and their paths. Together, we talk about this and so much more, so please enjoy my interview with these two incredible filmmakers. So, I want to start this off by congratulating you. To me, anytime you see an indie film come to fruition and be made and get in front of an audience, it feels like a series of miracles. And, as filmmakers, you conceive it, you make it, you go through post-production, you put your heart and soul out there for the world to comment on, to judge, to interpret. And then to me, that feels like each and every one of those steps must be just a massive emotional roller coaster. So I'm curious for you. Now we're now at least a year out from its world premiere. How are you emotionally on this journey with the film?
Well, first off, thank you for having us. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a really complex relationship with stuff we make, right? When we were writing it, it was one thing, and then when we were prepping to shoot it was another thing, then we shot it was another thing, and then when we edited it forever because we did it on a shoestring budget, so we did it in between commercial projects. It was many things, I was more involved in the post in this one than I ever have been before. So that was really fun because Chris and I spent a lot of time with this film before we got it done, figuring out what it was. And we had a lot of input from wonderful people that made it better and better, But, and then, the film industry is tough. So then sometimes you feel great because people connect with your film and you feel awesome. And then sometimes you feel bummed out because you're like, fuck, how do I make money? Can I swear?
Oh, yeah. Go for
okay,
it.
Cool.
We're all grown-ups in this room.
How do I make money? What do I do? How do I get people to see it? You're really stoked and you want people to see it. So, it's it's complicated. But, I mean, I'm really proud of this movie. It means a lot to me. And I think a big part of that is the fact that, we did it with our friends and we did it the way we did it. And I think seeing it, to me, it's easier for me to love this project because it was so collaborative with the people involved. And it's harder for me to do the thing that I have a tendency to do, which is be like, oh, I suck, because it's not my work. You know what I mean? It's a lot of people's work coming together. So it's easier for me to just love it because it just makes me think of people I love.
Oh, I love that. How about you, Chris? How are you sort of on your emotional journey with this film?
Yeah, I mean, it starts off, you're super excited.
Yeah.
Then you have doubt. Then you're really having fun playing on set with everybody. Yeah. And then you kind of want to quit because you're like, I'm going to ruin this for everybody. And we have self-deprecating humor too. And our audio person is one of our really great friends. And so at one point they were people were asking about if we could clear something in the background. And I just made a joke. I was like, oh, who cares? Our moms are the only ones that are, going to see the film. And then audio person took me back, and he's like, hey man, be confident. Everybody's here for you guys. We really love the project. Speak of it like it's proper, So you go through that. And then screening, it's been really great. We've played really intimate festivals and just sadly, and we've had people that have really connected to the main character. And just crazy stories about it. And you're just
yeah.
I don't know. It's really good that you can help someone or they relate to somebody, but then you're also I'm really sorry. Are you okay right now? Do we need to can I talk to you? Can I help you with anything? But so yeah, that stuff's rewarding.
Yeah. Nobody warned you about the trauma dumping in film school.
Which is, yeah. If it helps, that's fine.
Which is also a thing that, with Kylie, Kylie's not binary. So they were very, integral in the way the movie
Sun.
feels. Kylie was Sun, sorry, the lead.
Yeah.
And, the movie feels a certain way because Kylie brought so much to it. That was the thing, when we were writing the film, I hate it when films are when a character has trauma, so they have heavy shoulders and they're slumped over and they're sad kind of sacks. And, we auditioned a lot of people who brought a lot of different things to the table, but Kylie brought fun. You know, I'm some of my favorite people in the world that make me laugh the most are some of the people who have been through the most shit or like are, you know, depressed or whatever. And so like we really wanted a whole person to be who Sun was, and I think Kylie brought that in a way that was like really powerful. And I think that that is really the thing people connect with most in this film is Kylie. I think it's their performance.
Yeah. Oh, they're incredible in this. And it actually brings up something I did want to get into. I was really struck by, and I'm wondering is now how much of this just comes from the casting, but how Sun styling is very androgynous. There is it's interesting that the god queen sort of evolves into someone who is sort of eschewing sort of very specific gender. But also it feels a little reverential. Like I saw their styling and thought of David Koresh. I thought a little bit of Jim Jones with the sun, you know, with the glasses. And I'm curious because it does feel intentional. How much of that was about Kylie? How much of it was about kind of physical manifestation of the inherited trauma and indoctrination and her, like, you know, or I'm going to say her when I'm talking about Sun.
Yeah.
Like being presented through these costuming choices.
Yeah. So Chris, I think if I remember right, Chris kind of reached out to the cast because they all pretty much provided their own wardrobe besides the Reverend. And Chris was like, here are some go-bys. I think Chris shared some like films he liked, like Wendy and Lucy and a few other films. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm speaking for you, Chris, but like, yeah, but like he sent out some like go-bys and like color schemes, and then the talent kind of brought what they brought. And I think Kylie had a very clear idea of what they wanted the character to look like. And, you know, speaking to that too, like, in general, when we were writing the film, I wrote the film in like 2 days, and then I edited it for, I don't know, what, 6 months about, right, Chris? 5 months. But as we cast it, like we have a very like queer friend group. So as we cast it, like with people we knew, it just started becoming like a very queer centric film.
Yeah.
And so once that was a bit more the direction, like I started, you know, so I guess let me take it back a little bit. So like I became obsessed in 2019, 2020 with like right-wing bullshit, like just dissecting it, listening to podcasts about it, all this stuff. I was obsessed with it. And I found obviously like things that inspired us, like the Rod of Iron Ministries, like that Real Gun Cult. I don't know if you are aware of them at all, but obviously
a little bit.
We modeled some things off of them, and, you know, other cults of the past. There's some Scientology in there. But anyway, like as I started writing that and getting into it, I had this thought, like, because Chris was like, oh, we should talk to our friend Lou, who's also non-binary and was like somebody we know who plays Tony in the film. And like, as it started I was like, well, we should just cast like our friends, but also cast like lots of queer folks, because like we're building a universe where you have this like right-wing trauma affecting these folks, and who's affected by that stuff more, especially this version of it. You know, this new wave of right-wing is very focused on anti-queer and anti, you know, LGBTQ. So like we wanted that to be a thing where like those folks got to win in our world. You know what I mean? Because like, you know, it's nice, and that's something that I think is important. And then as we started casting that, we started communicating with the talent and like doing table reads, like Zoom reads, because a couple people from out of state. And we would go line by line through the script and be like, cool, that was great. How would you say it? And we'd like make changes so that way it was in their voice, because some folks weren't like the most experienced actors. So it was just easier for us to process it through their voice and then like adapt what we had. Like there's this moment where Tony and Son are talking, and Tony brings up Octavia Butler. That was written as Faulkner when I wrote it, because the whole thing's like a reference for As I Lay Dying, the whole road trip home and the championship. So like I had
ahead of all of my questions, sir.
Sorry. but I guess like long story short, like everything that the characters were, we like took who they were, asked them to define it, and we just gave them parameters. Right, Chris? That's fairly accurate, right?
Yeah, and I gotta say, for Kylie, we sent like, they were like, we've been trying to work with Kylie for a bit. Rob has known Kylie for a while, and we sent them a very early version of the script, and like the way that they like related to the character and like how they spoke of the script, like in my head, it was like always Kylie. Like they would have had to do a horrible read for us to like have it not be them, just because like just like the vibe. And so, yeah, like Kylie playing that character brought so many more layers, I guess, than we thought. Because like the original idea was like, what would it be like if you were raised to believe one thing and then you find out that it's not true? Like, if you were told you were amazing as a kid in worship, like, are you mad at everybody for not still thinking you're amazing? Like, do you just want to be away from people, you know? And so like that on top of like Rob's obsession with like what was far right wing cults, you know.
The tame version of it that's in our film now, comparatively to what we're dealing with.
Yeah, gosh, it's a whole other thing. But yeah, just like everybody coming into their own, and like Kylie's wardrobe, I think, is all their own wardrobe. Like if you look at some other old music videos, because they're in a band called Pedal, like they are wearing the jean jacket, and then just like the hooded sweatshirt and everything is just, it is like such a just like a staple, I think, like outfit, you know, like I don't know, anyone can wear it and I think feel comfortable in it type of a thing. So
yeah. I mean, it feels like a little bit of a happy accident to some degree then, because I do think that it does serve to sort of reinforce some of the themes, especially as we get later in the film and have a greater understanding of what it is that they're trying to unburden themselves with, that they're unconsciously kind of like putting on the styling and the garb of a cult leader to some degree. I think is really interesting, even if it wasn't intentional. Let's talk about the right wing element of this, because I do think we're in this time where, like, culturally, we're much more aware of the rise of like Christian nationalism in this country. It's certainly an existential threat that I think a lot of us people, especially queer people outside of the very narrow definition of that they've set forth about what we can and should be. And I think there's a version of this movie that's very pedantic, that is prescriptive, that really kind of explores the evils of that. But instead, this takes a much more intimate and self-reflective approach that like explores prolonged trauma and the ongoing process of deprogramming. Can you talk to me a little bit about why, inspired by what's happening, this is the kind of story that you were like, that you wanted to tell?
So I started therapy in like 2019.
Okay.
And, it's like one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. Because obviously it made me a much more tolerable human being. Actually, I think I started in 2018. But anyway, it made me a much more tolerable human being. I think everyone
Can we get a
cosign
cosign on that, Chris? No, I'm just kidding.
But it also like taught me to like analyze things with a perspective that's similar to like, I now go, okay, I'll give you an example, right? Like if somebody's angry at me, I go, or angry and like acting out, I don't go, fuck that guy. I go, wow, that person probably feels insecure. That person has something going on. It just makes you more understanding, right? You know, and I'm not perfect. I get pissed sometimes too. But like that was kind of like the idea, like that little thing was kind of like the idea of how to explore, how to process like this right-wing bullshit that's going on, right? Like that was like the idea for that character. It's like, well, okay, so who is this? Who is she? She has all this responsibility and she's so connected to this thing. And I thought about what it would be like to, because she's a victim, right? Like, I mean, she didn't have any power. She's a fucking child. But like, at the same time, like, I personally have felt guilt about things I'm not responsible for. Like, I was raised with trauma, you know? So like, it's an interesting thing. Like, and that was kind of like the core of the motivation for the main character. It was like, well, how would you feel about all this? And it's like, you know, there's a version of this that could have been like an angry person who's like out there just raging out against this thing, but it's like, but that's not what would happen, right? You were like beaten down by this thing. So instead of that, you just feel the guilt and responsibility for it. Right. So when you're in the space of the world, maybe you hide yourself a little bit more. You try not to be noticed, and maybe you just kind of tuck yourself away until you're ready to process that. And then you can live through that experience. But it's not a global experience for Sun. It's a personal experience that she went through this, right? So like her growth in that needs to be personalized. Like now, who knows what she's going to do now? Like at the end of the film, you know, like she could go hang out with Autumn, and they could go to fucking protests and speak their mind and do all this shit. But like at the time, it's so personal for her that she has to process that. And like the greatest act of like rebellion that the character can make from the start of the film to the end of the film is to choose to deal with that for the first time in her life. And I think for the first time in her life, she feels strong enough to do that. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if I got way off of the original question.
No. That's literally, you're answering the question exactly. Because, like I said, I think that there are a lot of different ways you could go, and I think your response is really interesting to take something that is built in this like place of othering and find an empathetic story at its core is I think very profound, and it kind of, I don't know, it like negates the toxicity of the source material to some degree.
Well, and I don't know how much I want to spoil. I mean, I guess I don't care if I spoil the movie, I guess, because how else do we talk about it? But like you know, there was active choices that Chris and I made based off of what we like and don't like. I mean, there was so many versions of the script. There was a version where Sun just gets to the end and Autumn's there and she's still part of the cult and then she kills them all. Like, obviously, like, it was a bunch of different versions. It was like a traditional, like, you know, revenge porn, crazy shit kind of thing. Like, we went through all these variations of it. But like, actually, Chris and I talked ahead of the call about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Netflix one. And it drove Chris fucking crazy that the movie ended with a school shooting victim using a gun to like solve their problem. And like, and did we talk about that before I wrote the script? I don't even remember, Chris. Was that after?
No, it was while we were trying to figure out how to end it. Cause we were like really, you know, really committed to them not doing like a violent act and like them not needing to be violent and like turn to violence. Cause like, that's, I mean, I don't know. It's just not what we like. And yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre made me so mad at the end. So mad.
Yeah, but like in another version of a you know, in a wilder movie, of course, it's great to have like girl at the end of the movie, the fucking final girl, like absolutely murder the bad person. But like that wasn't the tone of this. It would have been so jarring to be like, this person was traumatized by like right-wing belief and like unchecked, you know, gun culture in America. What's the solution? She gets a fucking machine gun and mows down the bad guy. Like, that'd be fucking wild. You know what I mean? So we didn't want to do that. So and I think it like naturally kind of came to us that it was like, well, what should kill the Reverend? His own rhetoric. So you see this person who's like inspired by this person who's like, in a way, like the more extreme version of it, right? Because he has all these ideas in his head, but he was outside of this structure. So he just like gets to run with what this is. So he's like the next phase of it, right? Like he's like fucking Nick Fuentes, whereas like the Reverend is like Charlie Kirk. But like, you know what I mean? So like you see that and you're like, okay, this guy's the more extreme version of it. So he's going to do a violence, you know, like he's the inspired, he's the fucking he's the Channer.
Yeah, you know? I mean, yeah, because you have this juxtaposition of the person who's like admitting that it's all just bullshit and a power play in the same moment that a true believer who has like been indoctrinated by him comes in and live by the sword. That's also something that
I am obsessed with when I talk about these like right-wing influencers is like, where does the grift end and like the true believer begin? Like you have like Alex Jones who's like just making money, but like he has to believe some of it, right? Or like all these like, or like Nick Fuentes who like, you know, when he's questioned by a police officer in private time, he's like, but I'm a Mexican American. And then he's on his fucking stream saying all kinds of Nazi shit. It's like, where does that grifter die and end? And with our movie, it's like, well, he's a fucking grifter, like clearly.
Yeah.
And I think that was important for a movie because it needs to be very clear cut. You can't have this blend of it. And even when she asks him at the end, she asks him a question of like, did you believe any of it? He's like a little bit confused. He's like, I don't know, maybe. You know?
Right. Yeah.
But his thoughtfulness in that moment doesn't come back to like, I did something wrong. It's like, what could I have done to manipulate these people better so I could have just kept the grift going? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, in some ways, it's so cruel, the things that he's saying to Sun in those moments, but also is the greatest kindness he could possibly have given her is to just be honest about, like, this is all a grift. It's all bullshit. Like, here's your story. But I do want to know. So there is one of the things I love about this movie is the iconography that you have created for it, whether it's obviously the crown of bullets is incredible. I don't know where that prop ended up. I hope one of you still has it. It's incredible.
I think it's in the kitchen at our office.
Yeah, it's in the office kitchen.
Perfect. Good. But also we open on him giving a sermon and he's in front of the flag and we have the like multicolored geometric shapes behind him. I'm curious how much in your process of creating this together, how much backstory did you create for this cult?
don't even know. We were just looking through a bunch of stuff. Right, like all this all that white supremacist, like the little symbols, like it gets so minute that like I almost bought a Twin Peaks shirt once, and then like I looked at I was like, why? Oh, there's a diamond shaped like white supremacist thing that looks really close to the Twin Peaks logo. Like,
yeah.
So I think that might have been it. Like that scared me. I was like, oh my gosh, these are so like, like they're like nothing, but to the person, like the dog whistle or whatever, So just something that was like bold and simple, was really it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Also, like the bullet crown and all that stuff was like that was like the really tangible stuff that we really bit from like the real shit, like Rod of Iron and a few other places had that stuff. And I like that stuff because it's just it's like almost so on its face. Like it's something that like I would shy away from if there wasn't a reality behind it, to be like, oh, it's very American to like worship with a gun. You know what I mean? Like it would be like if I made that up whole cloth, it would be fucking corny. Do you know what I mean? But like the fact that like we live in the space we live in now, and you've seen similar things to that in real life, it feels good. It feels true. Also, like speaking of like the way things have shifted since we wrote it, is like our Reverend, he kind of speaks in those dog whistles and those codes. He doesn't outwardly say, which was a debate we had. It's like, well, how homophobic and racist should he be in this opening speech? And it's like, well, no. So we did that, but like even that game is like now kind of gone. People just say the thing they want to say now, and it's gotten worse. So like it's like it's funny because you make something that you feel like is so extreme, and then like in such a short period you're like, oh, okay, I don't know, maybe they topped it.
The world is kind of like, hold my beer.
But I also, like, as far as like the history of the cult goes and whatnot, like I mean really it was really me. I wanted the movie to be without time. This was a debate Chris and I had where I was like, no cell phones, like shit like that,
right?
Because like really, I mean, I don't know what year the cult ended at, sometime in the 80s, I guess. And then like, it's like maybe like early 2000s when the movie takes place, maybe a little bit sooner, who knows. But so it was really just finding things that pissed me off the most about real cults and like kind of sliding them into the film, because I wanted to, like I said, have some kind of a finality to seeing the shit that pissed me off all the time online. So like it was like, okay, I can put this, like, there's like the scene where the Reverend's like taking the statement from what do we call her? She was like the crier or something.
The confessor. Yeah, Callie.
Great actor, Callie, Michigan actor. But like there's like a scene where he's taking her like confession or whatever, and he's like clearly documenting it for blackmail. Like that's straight something out of Scientology. Like they really do that. That's like a thing that they do to their people. They fucking log all this horrible shit they did, and then if they ever go against the religion or refuse to donate money, they fucking leak it online and ruin their lives. So like it's like shit like that where we would find like I mean it was really like what pissed me off the most, and like how can I make the worst version of all of these people. But also be very charming, because like they have to be, right? Like I talked to a couple actors that were like, oh, the cult needs to be so scary, the cult leader needs to be so evil and scary. It's like he's so much scarier if like he's so sweet.
The scary thing.
Yeah.
I do think that also the choice of the God Queen is really interesting, because when I think of these far right Christian nationalist, I mean, even Scientology, NXIVM, all of those tend to like misogyny and is foundational and to these ways of thinking, these philosophies. So when you had a God Queen in this, there was almost like a whisper of like maybe paganism or something of that nature. Talk to me about the choice to have a God Queen in this.
Some of that came from like, I like the idea of this guy be like, because obviously like the standard move would be like the cult leader is the guy and everybody must come to him, right? And I like the idea that this dude was like, I'm just trying to fuck everybody and be a piece of shit. I don't need all this stress. And so I don't know, there's a couple of moments of that where it's like I think that like inherently as men we tend to put shit on women, and so like it's an interesting thing, this woman who's a child is going to now be responsible for all these people. And also I think it's like a terrible responsibility. So seeing a little girl absorb that is very affecting. But like really, I think it was like, it's almost like a whispered misogyny to be like, I got a scapegoat and it's this girl, you know what I mean? And then like there's a moment too with Bill at the end. What's the character's name? Why can't I think of it? The gas station again.
It's
Morgan.
Yeah.
Morgan. Sorry, with Bill as Morgan at the end, where she is having this traumatic moment, and she still has to be the boss and like hand over this power to this man, and like still has to like comfort this man. She just had like her finger in a skull, and she still has to be like comforting and babying this man who is like a fucking fully formed grown man. And it's just like, it's moments like that I think were really powerful. And I think like the femininity of it is important. Like where you see her on the road and like you're meeting all of these folks, and it's always these women who are like very accepting of her. And I think like with the way she was raised, that's really important, because she was raised without maybe as much of that like female like one-on-one love and responsibility that would have been there to be like, oh, we'll take care of you. Oh, we got you. Because she was kind of isolated by this man who was just like using her as a puppet to do the worst things he could, mostly to the women in the cult, So
yeah,
that was kind of the thought of it. And then also like, yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting too, to like have any kind of a God representative, like in a cult that is like kind of touting like Christian nationalist ideology, because it kind of makes it its own thing, which I think is interesting. So that was also like part of it. It's like, okay, but they're clearly not like, and also like, this is so in the weeds, but like,
let's go.
Naya, who's in the movie, who was like working with us at the time, is very Christian, and I'm very atheist, and so like there was a pass of this film that was very much like, fuck religion, and like, but Naya and Naya, who's in the film, who plays Autumn, like they're both very religious people. And the more I talked to them, the more I was like, I don't know, that's like not fair. Like, why is that my perspective? Like these like, so then I made a point to try to put moments where people who had like a faith that they've built on their own could be supportive. Not that I believe in anything, because I don't, but like these folks that I know were so great. So why am I shitting on a thing that's part of them, that makes them great? So it's like, no, that should be like part of this too. So that's just like a side thought, I guess.
So we touched on this briefly at the beginning, and I was like, you're getting ahead of me. So I wanted to circle back about structurally the journey element of this film. Within the film, the logic and the definition of journey comes up. And I found myself watching it as Sun is going through this and meeting these people, and how it's unlocking different parts of her self-discovery. I was thinking of some like classic journey literature. I was thinking of Faulkner. I was thinking of like even Don Quixote came into my mind, and like a little bit of the Odyssey. And I was curious, it sounds like maybe this is true, that there is some inspiration from classic literature, or at least structurally, of this story. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, there definitely was. Like Faulkner was like a touchstone for me as far as like tone for the character journey. And then like actually the Wizard of Oz came up a lot with like the path, which is really interesting. I think Andrew or maybe John brought that up originally. I can't remember, but we were talking about the Wizard of Oz, and it was like laying out this like path. And like another thing that I've always thought was really fun is I like the Coen brothers a lot, and I know this movie's like overly quoted and annoying for it, but Big Lebowski has this interesting thing where if you pay attention to the main character in Big Lebowski, if you notice when he starts talking to people as the movie goes, he gathers phrases that he picks up from those folks. Like there's this part where he sees George oh my God, who was the first guy we all hated who did the Iraq War?
George Bush?
George Bush, yeah, the OG George Bush is on the news, and he's like, and he says like, this aggression will not stand. And then later in the movie, when he's talking to somebody, he's like, this aggression will not stand, man. And I really always like that you see those little moments coming out. So like, I thought it would be fun if like each person that she met along the journey was like somebody she picked up some kind of new idea of how life can be lived. So by the time she makes it to the end, she's like essentially like building her own religion right through this path. So she's like finding these little tidbits from all these folks, and by the end she could process that in her own way, and she can be her own person. It's like we have that wonderful algae bloom song in the film, right? Like it's the one that's like in the montage earlier, and she kind of laughs because it takes her by surprise. But at the end, it sits heavy with her because that song is like this traumatic thing, and she can finally relate to that song because she's like been through so much now, but she's processing it. And that's kind of what that kind of music does. You know, it's like people screaming and going into these things because it's therapeutic. You know what I mean? So I don't know, like all those things were thought. But as far as like literature goes, there's this great book called The Movie Goer by Walker Percy. Have you ever read that? It's a really, it's one of my all-time favorite books, but it,
Movie Goer.
This is about to get so pretentious. It spends a lot of time with like Kierkegaardian existentialism and that belief of like becoming the knight of faith as you process through repetition. And like, that's something that I like to include in all of the characters I write, is there's these moments of like repetition, and breaking that cycle allows you to then experience something out that's greater than yourself. So it breaks that ideology of like this self-generated space in this world, and it allows you to see something bigger. And that's like really well represented in the Movie Goer through like the character's perspective of like meeting this woman that changes him fundamentally.
I love that. And I think it's certainly, I can feel its influence in this, especially how sort of where we leave Sun at the end of this. So you guys have been so generous with your time. I know we're like, I just have a couple more questions, then I'm going to
We can talk all night.
Okay.
How long you want to talk?
Okay, good. Well, I do want to talk a little bit about your collaborative process. I'm always so fascinated when I see teams. I am like, in your case, 2 or 3 directors working together, how you come together creatively. Now, you guys have been working together for 15 years, I think I read. Is that about right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And this marks your second feature. I'm curious, what did the process of making this film teach you about your collaboration, or change or refine, or really just illuminate about that experience of working together?
For me, it was like the post end of it was like so different than the first one. And I mean, for me, like personally, I've talked about this with Chris before, but like when we made our first movie, I spent a lot of time trying to be a director, as in like, I learned all these I was studying Meisner, and I'm going to like work with these actors. And it was like really important to me to do all that stuff. And then in the second film, it was like Chris and I could like talk about something, and I could go in and like, I mean, the biggest note I gave the whole movie was always like, life takes time, slow down, like live in these moments. Like, cause when you're not working with like super experienced actors, it's really hard to listen on camera. It's really hard to carry yourself naturally on camera, and like, just forcing people to slow down and like these interactions to go very slow. It forces anticipation, like organically between 2 people. And then that anticipation reads as waiting to hear what someone's going to say, I think. So like just forcing that pace. And then Chris is like really focused on like look and camera, and he works with camera a lot and blocking. I mean, we're both like, focused on tone. Chris is better with that than I am, I think. Like keeping a steady tone from scene to scene. I'll just get in the scene where I'm gonna be like, this can be this, and Chris is like, no, bro, this is where we were before this. This is after.
yeah, I think that's it. I think like Rob always has like very good like in the moment, and can like when talking to people, can help kind of get the performances we need. And so normally like we'll talk behind a monitor, and then Rob will kind of go back and talk with the actors, and then we'll just make sure together that we have like which piece we need for the edit. And then so I came up editing, so I'm very confident being like, oh no, let's not fret, we have this part, like this beat, how they say this is right. Like a big thing is at the end with like the Reverend, where they're like, he's like, oh, I don't know, I should have told them to leave. Like I think Rob had more written than that, but it was like, at the time, like I was really confident that like the way that he delivered that line, we had it.
Yeah, we did a lot of that on set, cutting monologues out that I had written.
Yeah,
but we'd watch it we'd watch it and be like, this feels fucking weird, and then we'd like go back in and be like, no, just say this, like just cut this and this and this. But we would do that a lot on set. It would be like, oh man, this is like a lot of. It was also like full disclosure, like our first film was like so dialogue heavy that like our first pass of it that Chris cut was like 3 fucking hours long. It was like an 80-page script because I had no idea what I was doing when I wrote it. And so I set a goal for myself, which was like no talking unless we need it. And like that's kind of in there. I mean, really, I mean, honestly, the opening sequence with the monologue with Reverend wasn't supposed to be part of the movie. That was something I wrote that was going to be, we wanted to do like a social media teaser where we're going to like drop this like clip of like the Reverend talking. And before we shot, it became part of the movie in that script. But like, like that was like Chris's idea. I was like, I want to know who the Reverend is more. And Chris was like, just do a thing and we'll make like a social media video or some shit. And so I started writing that, and then that became the new beginning. And it was like, okay, this is way better. Because in the original beginning, it was like this huge violent scene. And it's like, I don't know. We can't, you know, we have to figure that out. And, you know, we only had like a few actors that day. And we made the whole movie for 62 grand. Amazing. We shot, you know, fairly short days. I think most of our days were 8 hours. You know, I think we had shot, principal was like, what, 18 days, Chris? And then we did like 5 pickup days.
Yeah.
You know, and the pickup days were literally like me, Kylie, Chris, and Julie and Carmona. And that was the entire crew. So it was like, that was it. And Doug came with us.
The opening segment is quite different than the rest of the film, which is largely very like it's intimate and I don't know, atmospheric's not the right word, but it's about it's a vibe. It is, you kind of just sink into it and watch this road journey that Sun is in. But there is this pretty violent opening sequence. How was the experience as filmmakers doing that compared to the rest of the film? Did it inspire you to make you want to do more? Do you feel like you're more fulfilled by doing things that are a little bit quieter, a little more intimate?
Our next script that we're developing right now is called Something Bad Is Gonna Happen, and it's like,
great name.
It's all violence and fast cuts. I mean, there's like a 8-minute scene where like a fucking like a 70-year-old man possessed by an alien is like being ripped to bits by a girl with a hatchet in a store, and she's like puking on his corpse while he's like dragging his spine on the ground. It's like Chris and I were like, all right, we did that. Now let's do like The Thing meets Evil Dead. Yeah. So like, you know, I mean, I think totally like, I think we like playing. I think a lot of indie filmmakers get stuck on the idea of trying to do things because they think it's cool and it will help sell the film. And I think for us, our focus is like, what's right for this project. And this project, like when Chris was coming up with these like really long, suspenseful shots, that was what was right for this project, because like it does two things. In a moment where nothing happens, it forces you to live with this character long enough that you have to connect with this person. And in the moment where something might happen, it makes you anticipate what that is, which gives you the dread that the character should be feeling in that moment. Yeah. Whereas like, and that's a great thing, right? Like Exorcist 3, I think it is, that has that crazy opening sequence with the fucking, like, what is that shot? Like 8 minutes long. It's crazy. But like, that's such a great iconic thing, because like, it'd be silly if you did it any faster, but it's so great that it takes its time. And so like, yeah, I don't know. I think we want to do something. I mean, you know, we have like 3 different narrative projects we're trying to shoot next year, plus 3 feature-length documentaries next year that we're doing. And we also have a feature-length documentary coming out that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about or not, but we're working on a distribution deal right now with our friend Josh Mallerman, who wrote Bird Box. But which I'm very excited about. I just got news about it today. That's the reason I bring it up, because I'm very excited about it. But Chris did the post on that with some very cool partners.
Congratulations.
But yeah, so you know, we want to do everything the way that it needs to be done. Like, you know, if something needs to be paced out and slow, that's super cool. I'm glad we were able to pull that off. I was very nervous about that, because when you're working with like less experienced actors and you're working with like no money, it's really hard to live in a moment and let it be engaging and not have be self-conscious about it. Right. Like, cause you know, it's like, well, how long will the audience deal with this? Like the final shot of the movie is like 12 minutes long, isn't it, Chris, or something like that?
Yeah.
So, you know, which was a nightmare in post, by the way.
Oh, no. Like in terms of like what, continuity or
there was like cleanup shot with the blood, and then there was like it went back and forth between that and color, and then there was some like Chris had to paint out a dead pixel that took him like, didn't you spend like a fucking week on that?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was an order of operations issue on my part. But, yeah.
There was just a lot with that, and we only got to do that shot 3 times.
agree. Yep.
Actually,
Yes.
if I can shout out Anika, one of the most impressive things of the film is when Anika did her close up for her speech at the fire. She's like, what is she, Patty? I don't remember which one she is.
Petty. Yeah.
But when she does it, when we do her close up at the fire, she did one take because we just didn't have time to do more. That was one take, and I think she did the song twice.
Wow.
Which I think we only used one take of the song, right? Like you just picked the better take, right?
Yeah, it's just the one take, no cutting.
Yeah, fucking unbelievable. Like she was unbelievable. She's also a very talented musician that Chris and I were a fan of. Like she had this punk band called Chump that was really great that Chris was into and then he got me into. And then she has this like amazing solo project, this like deep folk music that we were just fans of. So we were so stoked to work with her.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, it's one of the things I love so much about indie filmmaking is like it's something that's happening in the moment that you have to just put everything into it and at the end turn what you have into something special. And I think that you've done a really incredible job with this film. I did kind of allude to something I like to call happy accidents on a film set. And I feel like this happens a lot in indie films where something unplanned turns out better than you ever imagined. Aside from just, like I said, Sun's amazing costuming, were there ever any other moments that you recall where something you had not intended just made the moment that much better?
Yeah, for me, it was a lot of Duke's performance. Like he wasn't like an actor. He was just a guy we knew. He'd done a bunch of weird, cool art shit. Chris liked him. We brought him in. We both like him a lot. I think he's a brilliant artist, amazing photographer. But he just like didn't give a shit about the lines and he just wanted to do his own thing. And like when we were shooting it, it was really stressing me out. And then we were editing it. All the best takes were like the shit that he brought, like he did it. He knew what he was doing and I couldn't see it in the moment. Chris saw it. I couldn't see it in the moment.
Yeah.
I was very stressed out by it. Like I was like, oh my God. And then there was like a couple moments where like, I would do stand-in and do his performances with Kylie because Kylie's very like studied actor. So like I knew the lines, I would do the lines with Kylie. So for some of those close-ups, it's like me and Kylie because Duke was all over the fucking place. And I was like so stressed out by it. But I mean, everything he did made it, all of his versions made it into the movie. He killed it.
I guess I will say like the title shot and the Reverend giving his speech and like the one take at the podium with the vintage camera was actually much more of a elaborate shot where we were inside the cable. We shot in an actual like public access channel. And so it's supposed to be like this whole like long thing where we were like on an actual monitor. You didn't know we were on a monitor. We start pulling back, you see that it's a monitor. And then like we go back and like you see that he's like giving the speech. It was like this whole just like essentially like cachet ripoff opening where it's like, oh, which media are you in? Like, so, that was maybe the simplicity of what we have, I think, is much more than like, me trying to be like, oh, I like this film. Look at how smart we can be with this filmmaking. So I think it is stuff like that. Maybe like when you have these great ideas for shots and like maybe sometimes the filmmaking gets in the way of it is like, because sometimes just like a wide shot, with two actors in it or one actor and it just like being still and quiet is probably way better than if you're trying to get like an overhead shot and then this and like cut it together to try to like fake the time or like a rhythm between two people. Like if you can just like get it simplistically, like I think a lot of times that works out a lot better.
Also, Chris and I were shooting like textures for the title sequence in the office, and we have this puppet of Alf, and we were just like wiping his butt on the lens. And that's what, like, when the name cards come up, it's like Alf's butt, like a puppet of Alf's butt, like being waved in front of the lens in like a very distorted, actual like 1980s tube camera.
Yeah.
Are you big Alf fans? Because I feel like there's another Alf cameo.
There's a big Alf cameo.
Also, can I tell you, like, I don't know if I should say it, but like, we kept waiting for us to get in trouble, and Chris was like, I'll just paint it out, and like no one fucking flagged it. Like we never got any trouble with like our lawyer or nothing. Like no one flagged it.
I mean, I'd like to argue that it's integral to the story because Sun feels like an alien. And so, that's just like it's like a representation of how she feels right on the outside of her van, Inside the van, there's someone that feels, just not of this world.
Also, I think the show Elf ended with like this weird uncertain feeling where Elf like might be going home and they never finished it, so that is kind of like maybe the whole movie is just Elf.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Well, I can't wait for that special feature on the Blu-ray. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. But I'm gonna ask you the same thing I asked before we started recording. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you really were hoping to talk about today? I want to give you the floor to share anything about the movie that we like. Just I tried to go deep with you.
I think you did great, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was very fun. Just so you know, this was
Good.
a wonderful
For me as
experience.
well.
Thanks. Like, I'm not great at talking about our work, so this was wonderful, and you made us very comfortable. So thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so pleased.
I would say being an independent filmmaker, specifically right now, is extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah.
And making money is nearly impossible. So
Yeah.
please watch our movie on Tubi or Amazon Prime or where else is it, Chris? You're better at this.
Fandango Home, and you can get it on iTunes.
Also, our amazing soundtrack written by Dave Grohl and Blair French. We have it on vinyl, and you can buy it from Blair. I have no fucking idea how, but if you search "So Fades the Light" soundtrack, I'm sure it'll come up. But that's cool, and they did the movie for nothing. And if they can sell records, which look very cool, they're fucking very cool records. Hopefully.
Okay, my very last question. This is just me being nosy. I am very, very passionate about horror and women in horror. And so when I heard that one of the people that gave you notes on this was Jen Wexler, I became very curious. What were her notes for you?
She's like very technical and almost does like a QC pass for us, because she's like so generous with her time, because she actually gave us notes on our first movie. But I mean, it is like, she's like, oh, double check that boom shadow in the corner right there at this time. Like, I think the van breakdown scene, she didn't connect to. And so we went and like recut it kind of like based on what, she had mentioned, not feeling like real. I think that was like one of the biggest notes we took from people in general, was like when people would say like, this part of the acting doesn't feel real. So we would have to go back and, work with the edit or figure out it, but like, yeah, it was a lot of that. But no, it is very funny, because it is, her notes were definitely like, boom pull, check this shot. Are you guys still doing this cleanup thing? Like our first movie, one of her notes was just like, she probably won't remember. It was just like, oh, the comp on the computer screen should be better. Are you going to put a better one in, or is that temp? Like,
yeah. I will say this too. Like, Jen is someone that I like. I don't think she had directed yet when I first met her. I think she was just producing. She was producing like my favorite shit, which is why I reached out to her. She was at like Glass Eye, and we were in New York for like a doc we were shooting, and I just like randomly messaged Jen. I was so nervous because she was so impressive, and she was like super fucking cool. Like, had no idea who I was. Like, let me come out and hang out at the Glass Eye office. Like, introduced me to Larry. Like, we talked for like an hour and a half. She was, I think at the time, she's like, I'm going to do this punk rock horror film. And I was like trying to introduce to my friend to like help her with the score. But like, she didn't need me. She's doing all this amazing shit. But like, Jen has just been like so fucking cool to us throughout the years. And like, really, I just met her. Like, I've seen Jen in person twice. And she's just always been super cool. And I think that that's like a thing that like, I think if you're like genuinely a fan of folks that are making good shit and you reach out to them, they'll help you. Like Joe Swanberg gave us notes on this, and he had great notes. He gave us the note with like the juice spilling. He like gave me like, he gave us like one of our favorite edits in the movie. I mean, we've just been very fortunate that like people have given a shit about us, and we always try to like help people whatever we can. Like, we'll do free favors for people, and they'll, whatever. But like, it's always been like a really welcoming community, and we've been very fortunate. And Jen's just like, I mean, she just is like on her way to being, I think, one of the next masters of horror. I think she's unfucking believable.
Yeah, everyone should watch The Sacrifice Game if they haven't, because I mean, like The Ranger is so good for like, like being like a woods horror slasher punk rock movie. But then when you watch The Sacrifice Game, you just go like, it is like another step above just that movie. Like, I don't know. When I watched it, I was like really floored by just like the jump that she had made from like feature 1 to feature 2.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. This has been so much fun. I loved the movie going into it, and I love it even more getting to hear your passion for it and all of the thought and energy and love that went into it. Really just added to the experience. So I hope everybody at home listening to this, if they haven't already seen it, turn around, watch it, keep in mind the incredible work and like I said, the love that went into it. It's a very special and beautiful film, and I cannot wait to see your next apparently very bombastic, crazy sci-fi horror film. And I hope we can talk about it when it comes out too.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, thank you again for having us.
You.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.